I want to welcome everyone to the Kentucky Center for Mathematics afternoon session. Today, we welcome our regional consultant, Leah Dix-White, and she is going to be talking about one of her KCM favorite books. So Leah, I look forward to learning from you today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking this time out to participate in this session. I know it's nice outside. I know it is in Louisville, Kentucky. So I know that everyone's anxious to get out in the weather. So I do appreciate you taking the time out to spend with me talking about this book. And so I'm your host, Leah Dix-White. As Kelly said, I'm an RC at the Kentucky Center for Mathematics. And I'm thrilled that you all are here with me. If you want to know more about what we do at KCM and want to access some of the fabulous resources we have, check out our website. It has all the resources you need for math, and we are trailblazing here with all these great sessions. So thank you so much for coming out today as we talk about this book. It's great. It's taking action. So it's a favorite of mine, and the main reason why it's a favorite is because it really breaks down those mathematics teacher practices. And it, for me, was an eye-opener as I was going through the chapters. I was like, oh yeah, it was like preaching to the choir. Yes, yes. And so there were so many affirmations for me. And so that's why I'm sharing it with you today. It is an NCTM published book, and so you can see the authors there. There are 4 authors. I'll talk about them in a little bit. And so why I love this book. The main reason why I love this book, because it really describes those math teaching practices through a secondary lens. And for me, that was powerful. And it also offers suggestions for teachers on how to implement the practices. So a lot of times you'll get text and it doesn't really, it gives you research, but it doesn't give you the how. This book definitely gives you the how. And it also has practice-based materials, tasks, instructional episodes, student work, all those things that you would need to explore to develop an understanding of the math teaching practices. They also the authors sequence the chapters so that it scaffolds the learning for the teacher and for the reader. And so it shows how the practices are interrelated, and it also scaffolds them. So as you learn about one, you're like, okay, I understand that. And then it introduces another, and it provides all the nuts and bolts in between. And so I'll kind of talk about that a little more as we move on. So the authors, there are 4 authors of this book. So I didn't list them all in the title because I was like, oh, that's going to run off the slide. But anyways, Dr. Melissa Boston, she is from the School of Education at DeQueen's University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She's actually their program director of their middle school and secondary education there. You also have Frederick Dillon, who's a math specialist and a coach from the Institute of Learning at the University of Pittsburgh. These are all Pittsburgh folks, by the way. And you have Margaret Smith, who she is actually the editor for the entire series, because this is a book in a series. There's also a 6 through 8 book. So she is the editor for the whole series. So she also contributed towards this text. And then you have Stephen Miller, who is a practitioner at heart. He's from the Akron Public Schools in Ohio, and he's been a coach. He's worked with this district level technology, and he also served as a fellow at the University of Institute of Learning at Pittsburgh. So he's affiliated with the University of Pittsburgh as well. So all these individuals came together to put together this fabulous book that I'm sharing with you guys today. And so what is the focus of the book? The math teaching practices. And I'm sharing with you this visual because it shows how they're interrelated. And so you start off with, of course, that goal that focuses the learning. And then from there, it branches off into the other math teaching practices. And I really liked how the authors put those together in the book for us to understand. It was this idea of ambitious teaching. That's what attracted me to the book, because as a practitioner in a classroom, when I was in the classroom, I wanted to get better. I wanted to perfect my craft. And so this book is a gateway to that, because it not only provides for you examples and it showcases the practices, it also gives you multiple entry points, like what we want for our students, so that you can engage in this book. So it wasn't like a cover to cover read. I could pick out certain points certain practices that I wanted to work on, and I could go through the exercises with that and develop my craft in that way. And it's also good if you wanted to, as a math team, work on perfecting your teaching practices in math. And so that's what made it so great for me. And these are the 3 practices, although there's 8, and we could talk all day about these 8 practices. These are the 3 that I'm talking about the most in this presentation in particular. So I've highlighted those in this slide. Okay, before we get to our task, there are some key features of the book that I thought were really cool. Each practice or each section has like a point where you can analyze teaching and learning. And so they give you a chance to reflect and to think about and to answer questions. And so I thought this was really good for a text. It makes it like a study book in a way. You can kind of read about the practice, really understand it, and then engage in these ATLs as the book describes it, so that you can really dig in and see yourself as a secondary practitioner going about implementing these practices. So I thought that was really good. The other part that I thought was a key feature of this book were the taking action in your classroom. So these taking action steps really employs you to do something with the information that you've learned. And so I could see a coach using this book to work with teachers. A math PLC or a math team could use this book as a guide, and they really have prescriptive things that you can do to take action to improve upon your practice. So I thought that was really cool. So what I'm going to share with you guys is a task, and if you want to do some math, now's the time. So here's the task that I wanted to share with you guys. And the reason why I'm sharing this task with you is because I thought that it was really cool in how the authors used it to highlight those math teaching practices, in particular the task, you know, getting those purposeful tasks for students. And so as I was reading, they gave you an ATL to actually work through this task. So I worked through the task. And so as I was working through it, they wanted you to think about, how is this task similar to the task that we want to give in our classroom? In other words, we want to provide for our students those low threshold, high ceiling, high cognitive demand tasks that have multiple entry points. And so as the text was describing this particular task, there's an artifact in a little video that I'm going to show you that goes with it. The teacher has specific learning goals for the students, and he gave them specific instructions. You can start anywhere. The first 3 questions are kind of to get you started, but you don't have to answer each question per se. You just have to explore and to work on those reasoning and problem solving skills. And so what I liked about this task is because I actually worked through it myself. And the way I approached the task was totally different from how different students in the videos and examples approach the task, which I thought was really neat. And that kind of emphasizes the author's point, in that when you have multiple representations and you have this rich task, you can have your students engage in a rich discussion about the task. And so, but it has to have those multiple entry points. It has to have those high cognitive demands to push the students further. And so I thought this task was really neat to do that. And so another interesting thing about this particular task is that the author used it to emphasize the math teaching practices of supporting productive struggle. So I want you to think, as you're looking at this, as I looked at this task, what are some ways that students might struggle with this task, and how can I help them with this? And in the videos, in the examples within the text, the teacher specifically shows how he addresses those students' misconceptions and supports their productive struggle in doing this task. So I thought that was really interesting, because the idea is that you don't want to give away the strategy in solving the problem. You want students to develop their own strategies in solving the problem and then share those strategies amongst each other. And so I thought this task was really cool in demonstrating that idea. And so in addition to having rich, high ceiling, purposeful tasks, is to ask rich questions. And so what I thought was really neat about the text is that they provide you different types of questions. You have funneling questions. You have questions that are used to probe. You also have assessing and advancing questions. And I included this with the slide because as I'm asking students questions in the classroom, and as a teacher may ask students questions in the classroom, how do I know that I'm getting the answers that I need? And how do I know that I'm pushing the students' understanding further? And so the authors have suggestions on how to do that. And one thing I thought was really great is that for the advancing questions, you have to walk away and leave the students there to think about the ideas. And so the video that I'm going to share with you, the teacher does just that. And for me, that was the hardest thing to do, is to walk away, let students think about the task. And so the task that I showed you, I'm going to show you a quick video clip of the teacher doing just that. And so as you're watching the video, I want you to think about ways that you could have, or how the teacher addresses those advancing questions and how they probe students to engage in that productive struggle. So we're going to watch this video, and this video is accessible through purchasing the text, which I'll talk more about that a little later. But for right now, let's check out this video clip. These are 11th and 12th graders, Algebra 2, I think.
Top is your X, because that's constant. That's all I was going to say. So then you have to find a number that's before X to get to that. You already found what you have to add to get to that. Now you have to multiply to get to that.
We figured this,
Found out better.
but I can't do equations. I can't factor. So we figured that out first grade.
Okay, so you're okay. So you're going to start with the table and see if you can find the equation from the table.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we don't know how. We don't know.
I don't even know how to start to find the equation.
We know what the D is. We don't know if it should be X plus 3 or X plus an odd. Like, because it's X plus an odd.
Right.
Because these are all odds on the bottom. They're
Right.
always going to be odds, and it's plus 2 between them. There's two.
Okay.
There's a difference of 2 between them.
Okay.
We already know this. The top rows are X. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, that's our X.
Right.
Our pattern. The growth is. I don't know what the growth. That's what, the growth is an odd. It's like odd numbers.
Okay, so you have the table. You have these numbers written out.
Right. If we had the equation, this would be hold on.
Well, no kidding. Oh yeah, if I give you the equation, life would be great. What do you have?
This.
Which is a what?
S.
Okay. It has what? Okay. How many?
26.
Okay. And number 5?
Yes.
Okay, that's 26. There's no other way you could come up with that number 26 than just count it.
You can go by like
So X
4 by
plus.
half.
He's leaving us this way.
I broke it down real easy, real simple, because
Don't take all the
obviously
credit.
it looks real simple. So
Do you guys know what he's doing?
yeah,
Yeah,
I
I all help.
All right, well, hold on. You did this. So tell me what you did. You don't know?
I was working by myself.
Oh, okay. Do you know what he was doing? Okay, what's
I
his?
know.
his whatever the pattern number is.
Okay.
Not even looking at this.
Okay.
Just whatever the pattern number
Right.
is. You take it. You times it by 2 because there's obviously 2 rows, and the top row and the bottom row both have this number equal 2. And then
Okay.
you times that by 2, that'll give you the top and the bottom, and in the middle is a square. So
Right.
you do the well, I'm gonna call this X. X minus 1 squared. That'll give you the middle, and you just add them together. It'll give you the pattern. Did you understand that, too?
Yes.
And then I got another one. Though. If you take it, go this way, rectangle. You take X plus 1, and then you do X minus 1. And that'll give you this dimension right here.
Okay, just go back to the first one. There's. Look at what he's doing. Tell me what he's doing.
What do you mean? Like,
When he came up with, when he was explaining with the top row, bottom row, and the center, do you know what he was talking about?
yeah.
What?
I don't know how to say it, but I help him do that too. Like, it's not just all him.
Okay. So tell me, show me. I mean, do you have it in your head? Is it on
It's
paper?
in my head. He said that, okay, the middle, there's one square in the middle, and then there's 2 on the top. Subtract 1 and to get the number, subtract 1 and square to get the number of boxes in the middle.
Okay.
So, X minus 1 So 3 minus 1 is 2, and then you square 2 to get 4 in the middle. And then you multiply the whatever sequence you're on times 2 because you're being taught in the ball.
Okay. And that's how you came up with the equation. So, okay, can you take his equation, this 2x plus x minus 1 squared, and can you put it to a picture? Can you put it to these pictures? Like, let's pull out, let's say number 4, okay? If we take this, how does this picture right here relate to 2x plus x minus 1 squared?
So that's simpler than
You add 2.
x squared plus 1. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying there?
That's simpler than.
That's an easy way to break it down. You go from
Okay, I'm gonna go back to the PowerPoint. So as we're thinking about these questions, you can go ahead and unmute now. What were some questions that you noticed, and how was he able to probe their thinking and help them in a productive struggle? Anyone can share.
I like that he was looking at what they were writing and then referencing them back to the picture, because that is indeed the only way that I can make sense of that math is to look at the picture and then try to come up with the math. So in the chat, I was the one that was saying, okay, so I see the number of rows is the n minus 1. And so in number 2, there's only one, and I was using the word row, and I really meant column, because I see it up and down. I don't see it across. And
Okay.
you can see it across, like some people see it across, but I'm really seeing it by a row. And then I decided that then it was the number of items in that row was an n plus 1, but then then I see the 2 sticking off in the end. But he was referencing that to the picture, because that is how you really think about it. That's how you help the kids to make sense.
Absolutely. And what I thought was really cool about this problem, because that's totally not how I reason with it, which I thought was cool, because you always find something new. So I started off drawing there, and I know you can't really tell from my picture. I drew the original, and then I would just add in a different color how it was growing, and that's how I was able to determine, well, this row it's adding 1, and this row is adding 1, and then how I can make that into a picture. So I thought it was really cool how, if the task is rich enough, not only will it engage students in a productive struggle, but then you can use multiple mathematics teaching practices to develop their understanding and thinking. One being asking those advancing questions, 2 being providing them multiple entry points into a task, and then 3 allowing them to talk and discuss like they were doing at the end with those rich conversations. And so the kids were just talking about it and sharing with it. And then one question he asked was, explain to me what he's saying. And so someone has said that in the chat as well. So explaining another person's thinking, these are all ways to develop students' understanding, their conceptual understanding, and also for them to employ those reasoning and problem solving skills needed to do the math. And so I thought that was really cool with the book. And so for each different math teaching practice, there is a task, an ATL, that helps the teacher think or the practitioner think and reflect. And there's also task embedded in videos to help you look and see it in action. So hence the title, Taking Action. And so then I wanted to share with you all also this multiple representation, because that was kind of like what he was doing with his students, right? Wanting them to connect the visual with an equation and being able to also describe that growth as well. So the more we provide these opportunities for students, the more mathematics comes out, the richer the conversations. And so the authors did a really good job in connecting and showing how all these math teaching practices are interrelated. Another huge theme in the book that I thought was powerful was this idea of equity. And so we have these math teaching practices that are research-based, that we know promotes math achievement for our students, but there's an issue of access. And so with each math teaching practices, the authors include ways to make sure that you're attending to equity for all your students. And giving students these opportunities is showing equity for your students because they all have a means to access the mathematics, and providing authentic problems that promote student agency with low threshold, multiple entry points. These are the type of tasks we need to put in front of our students. And so the authors were constantly reiterating this theme of equity with each math teaching practice. And as a practitioner, as a coach, I think these are all great things to keep in our hat and in our toolbox. My favorite quote of the book was this one. And the reason why it was my favorite quote is because it's so opposite of what we see and do at times, right? And so we have a tendency, okay, I've got to teach quadratics. I need to show the quadratic formula. So I'm just going to do this here, and then they're going to do, and then I'm going to do. But that's not really how the authors support is the best path in developing that understanding. And so they're suggesting giving students opportunities to explore conceptual understanding with visual models and representations, and then also drawing on their prior knowledge. And so the assumption was that all students come to class with some prior knowledge to bring to the table. And so this is powerful regardless of their level of achievement. They all bring knowledge. And so it is our job is to foster that knowledge and bring it out, and so that we can push it even further. And so we have focused goals in our lessons, and we have rich tasks, and we structure the tasks with questions and sequencing and scaffolding so that students can engage in the mathematics. So that's why this quote, I used it with some other sessions I have done earlier, and it's just a powerful quote for me. It just reminds me to constantly make sure I'm giving those multiple representations for my students so they can develop that thinking and reasoning in mathematics. And so that is why this book is my ultimate favorite. If you are interested in exploring this further, I think that this particular text, like I had mentioned earlier, is great if you're a PLC, if you're a math team, if you're a practitioner who wants to endeavor upon ambitious teaching. This is the text to do that. It's one in a series, and so there are other grade bands, but I think what's really unique about this one is that it's interrelated, it's scaffolded. They have plenty of activities for you and resources in the appendix. There's a lesson plan template. There's also tools where you can actually assess your questions. And so I thought that was really neat too. So if I had all the questions that I was preparing to ask my students, I can use this tool and this book to see if they are actually questions that are probing student thinking like I want to do in my classroom. So there's resources and tools with that. And also with purchasing the book, you have access to materials through NCTM. They provide you transcripts of every task and of every video. The video that I showed you all today, I accessed from the NCTM page. And so you have all those resources together to really do a rich study of the math teaching practices from a secondary lens. So I think that's very powerful. As always, if you want to endeavor upon any of these book explorations or activities or learn more or do more, you can follow us at KCM. There is the website. We have a week of multiplication thinking next week on the horizon. And so it would be great if you could come join us then. As always, we are here to support you at KCM. If you wanted to have any further discussion about the task or the activity, you can unmute now, or if you wanted to provide feedback in reference to the task or the activity or the session we did today, I would love to hear it. You can go ahead and unmute or type that in now.
Leah, I really loved seeing the task and thinking about how it grows and how those numbers. I happen to have on my shelf the other books, and so for those of you that are in the K-5 world, here's the orange book happens to be the K-5 one. Those of you that are in the middle school world, so there's our beautiful book. It is the green version of it, and here in the corner, Leah's right, it says more for you, lots of resources. And then of course, today, this book, very rich in those. I loved it.
All right, great. So, I mean, I'm looking in the chat. Like I said, it's one in the series, and so I just think it was a great tool for anyone wanting to endeavor upon ambitious mathematics teaching using those math teaching practices. So,
I'd love for those of you that don't happen to have access to those books. If I see Lucy Anderson says, "Hey, I need that one," if you just put it in the chat, that's an interesting way to take a look at it. Look at our friend Jackie Dameron says, "Oh yeah, I could use that book." We really do talk about the math teaching practices, Leah, as a cornerstone for really what's going to transform Kentucky classrooms. And then might I add, in this group here in the afternoon, it happens to be national. And so this really will transform the national landscape. And we just need to make the words that are in these books and those 8 teaching practices come to life in our classrooms. One practice at a time. I'm not saying that we try to endeavor all 8 of them. Let's get good at 1 or 2 of them every year until ultimately we've got a fantastic classroom. So again, thank you, Leah. It's a great way to have a Friday afternoon. Those of you who know us here know that at this point in the conversation, we always give a shout out to our presenter. And so if in the chat message, you will say what was your favorite part of what you learned today and things that you liked about what Leah did. So I can begin to see, yeah. Look at them. Folks need that book, and they are so glad that you showed that video. That was nice. One of the things that was on our Facebook Live was Dee was reminding how we miss the sound of students and those vibrant conversations in our classroom in these times. It really is important for kids to have those conversations. Well, we thank you. Every afternoon at 2 o'clock, you can join the Kentucky Center for Mathematics for 30 minutes of content, just enough to really get you thinking. And we always anchor it to some more text and some more resources that you can use in your classroom. So we thank you. Thank you, Leah.
thank you guys. Have a good one.